Yes, very happy to see some real people after a long time, and very happy to see some real visions. I think this is as in one go to all these things that are going on. I think it's quite amazing. So what I will I'm very happy also to represent Nordic thinking because this is something that of course I automatically represent. And this, I'm going to talk about the happiness and specifically that how to connect happiness to architecture and possibly happiness to cities. And this was some something that I wondered myself that what is actually specifically the connection. And so, first of all, happiness, I would say that if you try to connect it to the goals of the society, normally the goals of the society can be described as economic growth or GNP as high as possible. And then there's also some researchers that say that you can say that happiness can be the goal of society in itself. So in this respect, if you have a goal, you need infrastructure. And this term of infrastructure for happiness, somebody was writing that I have invented that. Which, if it's the case, then I'm very happy because then I would not be like only an architect in a silo. But it's not, I think that's interesting because then this, if the angle is this, I think we can talk about happiness infrastructure as a system, and then you can pick any element of life and think about that, does it fit to the picture? And as we know that maybe Turku is the capital of the happiness in Finland. So where does the happiness come from in this kind of system? So if we take the society as a whole, there's of course the elements of business and technology, but if you think about any very highly developed issues like mobile phones, for instance, so this the level of business and technology has to be high, at the top level. But in many cases, it's still only the base level. So everybody else is doing the same and achieving this level of optimizing technology and business. So there's then higher levels, or it can go much higher into different categories of, for instance, culture, knowledge, and well-being when you are developing something like a city or any product even. And so you can, in a way, turn the pyramid upside down, that you are making, you're trying to get higher. And if the goal would be in the society happiness, then that would be on the top. So this is just sort of a way to discuss about the issue and break the normal silo thinking or the typology thinking that what are the categories of buildings, for instance, that are you actually making residential building, public buildings, and office buildings and things like that, or should you more look at the categories of this kind of happiness structure? So then there's a couple of examples I can show you in a way fragments of these infrastructure. So the role of architects in this structure is that we are maybe, if that would be really nice if we are in this infrastructure building business. One example is, for instance, the libraries. That okay, you can imagine that okay, we have a library and we're just designers of the libraries. But it's not just one building, it's the whole library system that has been around for 100 years, and then there's like every 10 years there's like a new generation of libraries, and then you are in a way in that chain of building something like a renewing the library system. Let's see what comes after. This is our office. there's actually, these are sort of the Finnish principles of making architecture, but I will go directly to the projects, so I will just go very fast through the principles. So first to the culture category. So if this would be infrastructure for happiness, then this is museums or the culture is one key element in this. And these used to be empty space for the buses actually in the middle of Helsinki, and then we designed an art museum, and the museum is under the ground, but you get a public square on top of the ground. And what the first time actually in any of our buildings, this is something that the children like the most, and they like to touch the building physically even, and then play with the building. And so I think that was not really something was the starting point, but I think it just makes you think that why doesn't it happen more often? That you get this kind of, let's say, people have almost like an emotional relationship to the building. I think it has shapes, but the justification for the shapes is that these are dome structures that you can make exhibition spaces with long spans without the columns. So this dome comes from the structural principle, and then you need the daylight, then comes the other form. So there's always a reason to make the starting point. And then as now in this theory of infrastructure for happiness, this kind of concept can be transported. And in this case, we are going to Dubai. So this is just open to the Expo Pavilion to Dubai. And I think it's, in this sense, we put this happiness into package also, and then and telling the stories of Finnish happiness, in this case in Dubai. And here, of course, this is a bit like, it's a building, but it tells, in a way, it's like a messenger, so it's bringing fragments of Finnish nature, and then the bigger story is that we bring a snow cape to the desert of Dubai. And we create a meeting space in the middle of the pavilion, which looks like a natural gorge, but in a very abstract way. So in a way, the best possible meeting space for meeting one-to-one. So if we go to the knowledge category, what are the examples of infrastructure? So library system is, of course, one, and then as was mentioned, that this is a bit like a recycling project. That there's an old library inside the new library, so the new library swallowed the old library. But as in Turku case, this Kirkkonummi has a case where you have an old church, and then near the church there's now the new library, and was the old library. So in a way you have the brains and the heart of the city very close to each other. And these are the starting point of making the heart of the city, and then they have now a process to rebuild the center blocks for this small city. But I think it's a very good idea to fix the center first, because then the city gets the identity and the values and let's say the key parts, the public access to where people actually spend time. It's like their living room, and then the surroundings you can then develop with the same ideology. So this was actually filmed when it was -20 last winter, so, and no people, but there's of course there's this maybe tells that these things, they have to work in a winter city way. So that's why also the libraries are important, that you have a space where you can spend time, in a way the third space, that you are free to spend time in a public space. I think these libraries, like all the libraries, they're filled with very small things, and we spend a lot of time on designing small details of the projects, which seem like they are just details, but when they all come together, they then at the end are, of course, quite important. Then there's the university buildings, that this was just completed, and just maybe, oh, it's also a video. It's in a connection to industrial buildings, old industrial building, and then maybe this is like a new industrial building. So in a very robust way. I think it's a bit like this building, that there's like this architectural style is now maybe, it's also very interesting to do something that's not so expensive to build, and it makes this kind of very robust and not over-designed spaces, and something that you can imagine that could easily stay there for 100 years, and it's not really, you cannot really wear it down. So possibly it has a longer lifespan, this kind of style. So this is educational infrastructure. Yes, somebody put together like I told them to jump around with the projects, but then, it's just that this is true, that last week we were working on this project, that we are making a competition for design university in Shanghai, and we are dealing with the same issues, that, and trying to take the Nordic approach to China. So I think it's a sort of a global situation, that when we are discussing the Nordic principles or happiness, I think it just doesn't apply to here or these cities, but it applies everywhere. And this is just what I was visiting yesterday, that we're just about to complete the House of Dance, and it's under well-being category of happiness. So well-being, I would say that it's not only to take care of the sick, but to promote the health issues. And one of the most effective ways to promote health is to support the trends of health. And this is, I think, something that people don't usually recognize, but there's a study that about 40% of Finnish people are somehow involved in dance. And it still doesn't have the pilot landmark projects. And this is maybe one of the first ones to recognize that not to only build stadiums for mostly men sports and these kind of big institutions, but also to recognize the sort of more fragmented trends and cultures what are around. So this is quite, I think, very happy to be working on this kind of project, that there's a sort of new discovery of culture, and which will now become really much more visible. Yes, okay. This one, I think, this is about actually in the work category, which was also went to the well-being sector, because just in a very short, I think the companies are, of course, they are rethinking how we are working. So in this case, we have even 4,000 people that had to be reorganized in a way how they work. So then you need to make a new model how to bring people together. So I think it also has to do with, in a way, looking at the big picture of how to reorganize everything from even goes to the structure of the companies and how they work together. And this also, it seems a bit like surprising that, but if we are discussing the cities, I think we should also discuss the countryside, because the countryside is the most of the area. It deals with the countryside. And actually there's an exhibition by Rem Koolhaas in Guggenheim too, that now the focus should be in the countryside. And this is actually my own family home in the north. And I made a restoration project out of it. So this, in a way, what could be said that this is maybe deals with recognizing the importance of roots, first of all, and then secondly, how to revive the countryside. It's like this area, there's actually not really good models of how to make, let's say, new innovations in terms of tourism in connection to the farmhouses. So this, I'm trying to make out of this farmhouse, this 200-year-old farmhouse, in a way like a small hotel, but with a very different concept. So that there would be something more meaningful. So then in this case, the hotel concept is changed, and it's actually not really a hotel, but it's more like a community. And it's called Friends of the Farmhouse. So you're able to join this kind of community that is then, it's possible to use the farmhouse for meeting people and to do something meaningful. So I think the whole point is that it's maybe to go beyond the architectural approach, that you're not just doing the surface of it, but you're trying to make a new concept. And then it gets interesting when you are trying to develop something, a new life for the building. And actually we are now in the process of, now there's like the key circle of the Akola friends who are from the village. We are taking pictures of them, and then we are going to have an exhibition that who is involved in the operation of this place. Okay, so I think let's see if this is the last slide. Yes, okay, now I won't show this in more detail, but we do have the project in Turku next to the market hall, or actually the whole block. And then the next thing is to start thinking about some new concept and innovations in connection to that. And to also, I think this might go to the happiness infrastructure category. And I think in terms of the very center and the market hall, there was a good term that it could be described as the kitchen of the city. So I think what is the meaning and the future potential of this kind of very key area in the city? So I think this would be a very interesting discussion also today to talk about. And if we use the kitchen metaphor, that am I the cook, or is it possible that there are several cooks in this project? And I think that would be interesting, that if we have the courage to have several cooks, and then we really have to think carefully that what are the ingredients. And of course the ingredients are the history, maybe the people who already, the companies who are there, who live there, and then we could sort of cook together to create this kind of very special kitchen in Turku. So I think it just, I'm maybe switching words and then, switching the goal to happiness, but I think this might help to break the normal way of doing things, and I think it maybe takes a little bit courage, and then there are different parties, but I'm sure that this might be, let's say, something that opens new possibilities, and certainly would be more innovative. And I'm very happy that we got a chance to participate in this kind of process. So thank you.